Statistics, both from the left and the right, are overwhelming on what happens to illegitimate children. About 70% of juvenile delinquents, teenage runaways, pregnancies out of wedlock are committed by the children of single mothers. If you were in the womb right now and you could choose whether to be black, white, rich, poor, the one thing you should hope for as a child in the womb is my parents are married. The statistics still are, if you look at it from the end of the spectrum of who ends up in jail, who ends up a murderer, who ends up a teenage runaway, who ends up getting pregnant out of wedlock herself, who ends up a rapist, about 70%, according to both the Village Voice and all these conservative pro-family groups, are going to be the children of single mothers. I mean, that is simply a fact. Now, imagine an America with 70% fewer teenage runaways, fewer teenage murders, fewer teenage drug addicts, fewer teenage pregnancies. That's what single mothers have created. And like I say, if you want what's best for your child, if you are pregnant out of wedlock, either marry the father, and by the way, shotgun marriages used to work just fine, but we've gotten rid of the stigma of a woman having a child out of wedlock.
But the problem is, it's good to get rid of those stigmas, because we would put people always in a box. You know, this is the way you have to be, this is the way it works out.
And
you know, this is not an ideal world, and you're talking about an ideal world. Oh, in an ideal world, by the way, everyone has a mom and dad. We're going back, you know, to the days of happy days. You know, most of our young people don't know what that is.
When the kids turned out a lot better.
Well,
and they were given every advantage in life. Stigmas are good things. Look, we have a stigma against smokers.
Who are the single mothers of today?
Smoking is bad for you.
Think
but
about
smoking is not as bad for you as being raised by a single mother. And yet, we do have stigmas, and they're good things. Stigmas against smoking, and yet smoking is not as bad for you as single motherhood. And there ought to be.
How do you come to that conclusion?
I've just cited the statistics over and over again.
One kills you. We know that smoking kills you.
One destroys a life. Look, the point is not what has happened to children who have been raised by single mothers already. Wish you the best. The point is to influence choices going forward.
Because everyone here is outraged in this audience. I mean, you are citing statistics. I know that they're credible, but what we're hearing here is you kind of focus this approach, you know, anti-single mothers. Do you really believe all of that stuff?
Who's the Christian here, Father? I care about the children. I care about how they are raised.
We're going to care about all of them.
And for you to be encouraging women to have children out of wedlock and discouraging them from being sent and to a nice adoptive home.
I was going to ask you a question, but I prefer to you just to rip apart Joe's answer, which was horrible. We're all products of our environment. That means that everybody from one environment would end up in jail.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You say they're products of the environment. That means if we all had similar environments, we would end up in the same place.
Well, don't you think that most criminals come from the same environment?
No, I think they're bad people.
Really?
Yes.
Really? You wouldn't say that most criminals come from inner city and low economic
most
environments?
Most of them come from single mothers.
Yeah. Oh, really? All right.
All the single mothers. All the single.
Thank you. See, we can agree on things.
Yes.
You know.
And I think you'll agree on my other point, which is why this leads to my conclusion. Once you've committed a violent crime, let's say, I say death penalty. Why do we waste time with the prisons? I would give, this party won't agree with, I'll give Chuck Colson 1 year of prison ministries. If you can turn him into a Christian, they can go. Otherwise, death.
Wow.
Just Christian, though? No other religion?
What, like Muslim?
I don't know.
Well, like an actual religion.
Judaism, Buddhism, there's a lot of...
Scientology, maybe?
That's a fantastic idea.
You think that I don't need you to show me any data that's going to help me understand that
over the past 30 years, the rise in violent crime parallels the rise in abandonment by fathers, meaning single mothers. If you look at all of the data on single mothers, you find that the children raised by single mothers, or shall we say lonely mothers, all the data indicates that these children are more likely to be incarcerated in prison, right? They're likely to go to fucking jail. They're likely to have less educational attainment, which means that single mothers are not good leaders. Single mothers are terrible leaders. And I'm not saying that the men who leave their children are good guys. These men who leave their children are irresponsible, immature. They're not men that I admire. They're immature boys, in fact, and I would encourage them to take care of their kids. But here's the thing. When a man leaves his own child, it's highly unlikely it's due to the child. It's due to that lonely mother having been a whore and he didn't want the kid in the first place. It's her being disagreeable and he's leaving the situation with her. So we can't lie and say that a lonely mother is preferential to a two-parent household. Don't we at least agree?
Well, they like to paint themselves as the victim, and they're the helpless, oh, damsel in distress, and life just gave them the short end of the stick, when the truth is they chose to be single mothers. Single mothers are not victims, and they should never be viewed as a victim. Now, if you're a man out there and you view women, single mothers, as victims, you've already fallen into their trap. You see, single mothers chose to be single mothers. Like, take any single mother. They normally, all of them, speak very ill of the father of their child. He's always a dick, an a-hole, a jerk, whatever. They'll call him every name in the book. But if he's such a terrible person, not only why did she get with him, but why did she have kids with him to begin with? The fact is she chose to lay on her back, she chose to spread her legs for that loser, and she chose to get impregnated with his spawn. They chose it. Single mothers are not victims. Although it's true they are victims of their own bad decisions, but overall victims, and the victim mentality, the save me mentality, that's not true. Now see, for beta males who have this Captain Save-A-Hole mentality, they think that it's their job to save these quote-unquote victims. Well, like I said before, single mothers are not victims. Single mothers are the most toxic women on the dating scene. Especially on the online dating, you see pretty much nothing but single mothers looking for somebody to use as an ATM to pay for kids that aren't theirs.